This comes from the Defender, people. The Defender. And the topic at hand, and actually I found an article similar to this with a similar picture that shows you all these companies that are tied together that I'm about to break down on many different platforms. So I got it from the Defender. I like how they have theirs broken down. And actually this website is called the Defender, Children's Health Defense News and Views. So it's called children'shealthdefense.org. The title is Who Owns Big Pharma, Big Media? You'll never guess. So they're saying this company called BlackRock, that's one word, BlackRock, and the Vanguard Group are the two largest asset management firms in the world. Combined own the New York Times and other legacy media along with Big Pharma. So in the picture, it just shows, I'm going to tell you a few here. Berkshire Hathaway, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, 3G Capital, ING, the Barclays, Wells Fargo, and others. I could go
Barclays. That's like the Barclays Center. The Barclays one? So, okay, all those corporations have a hand in Big Pharma?
Not necessarily, but the connection is that the same firm, that the management firm that owns those corporations also owns Big Pharma.
Wow.
So the narrative that we're getting is from Big Pharma because the person or the interests that own it own both.
Right.
It's in their interest to give us the narrative that's in favor of Big Pharma because that's all the same person.
And the board of directors.
We can narrow it down to actually two firms.
That's how they link companies without linking companies with the board of directors.
Right.
You're the board of directors
Right.
for FedEx.
Right.
But you're also on the board of directors for Pfizer.
Right. Correct. Right. Exactly.
And
for
no
people
one
that
sees
don't
the
know.
link, and it's like, well, wait a
Because
minute.
we've
there's
broken
the
down
link.
these boards before
Exactly.
and shown you this person used to work for here, this, and they go back and forth. Even the government as well. They'll be in the government, then they'll go to Big Pharma, they'll be in the media, and then they'll go to the government, etc., etc. So the Defender reports, Big Pharma and mainstream media are largely owned by two asset management firms, BlackRock and Vanguard. So those are our two players we're dealing with, people. All this information I'm giving you now is under the names BlackRock and Vanguard. Drug companies are driving COVID-19 responses, all of which so far have endangered rather than optimized public health. And mainstream media have been willing accomplices in spreading their propaganda, a false official narrative that leads the public astray and fosters fear based on lies. So it says here, Vanguard and BlackRock are the top owners of Time Warner, Comcast, Disney, and News Corp. Four of the six media companies that control more than 90% of the U.S. media landscape. BlackRock and Vanguard form a secret monopoly that own just about everything else you can think of too. In all, they have ownership in 1,600 American firms, which in 2015 had combined revenues of $9 trillion. When you add in the third largest global owner, State Street, their combined ownership encompasses nearly 90% of all S&P 500 firms. Vanguard is the largest shareholder of BlackRock. Vanguard itself, on the other hand, has a unique structure that makes its ownership more difficult to discern, but many of the oldest, richest families in the world can be linked to Vanguard funds. Of course, you're going to hear some names that we're used to. Let's see.
Fire away, buddy.
The stock of the world's largest corporations are owned by the same institutional investors. They all own each other. This means that competing brands like Coke and Pepsi aren't really competitors at all, since their stock is owned by exactly the same investment companies, investment funds, insurance companies, banks, and in some cases, governments. The smaller investors are owned by larger investors. Those are owned by even bigger investors. The visible top of the pyramid shows only two companies whose names we have often seen, Vanguard and BlackRock. The power of these two companies is beyond your imagination. Not only do they own a large part of the stocks of nearly all big companies, but also the stocks of the investors in those companies. This gives them a complete monopoly. Let me see where I saw those names at. Who are the Vanguard?
So two companies. Vanguard.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other one? BlackRock?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
BlackRock and Vanguard. Look that up, guys. Vanguard and BlackRock. And all that spelled just like it sounds?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Wow.
BlackRock, one word.
BlackRock, one word. Wow, that's phenomenal, dude. The fact that those two companies, because we've talked about the media consolidation since the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 50 plus companies in the early 80s, and now there's like 5 companies. So what you're saying is really there's 2.
Yeah.
And really there's 1 because you said they're merged.
Right. And
Wow.
there's a video, if you guys want to check out the video, that has more detail, because they mentioned the Italian Orsini family, the American Bush family, the British royal family, the DuPont family, the Morgans, the Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers as Vanguard owners.
Wow.
So those are the names.
You know who's a Vanderbilt? Anderson Cooper. His mother's last name is Vanderbilt.
Oh, well, yeah, huh? And then we'll wrap it up here with the connection between Big Pharma and BlackRock and Vanguard. In February 2020, BlackRock and Vanguard were the 2 largest shareholders of GlaxoSmithKline at 7% and 3.5% of the shares respectively. At Pfizer, the ownership is reversed, the Vanguard being the top investor and BlackRock the second largest investor.
Wow.
Keep in mind that the stock ownership ratios can change at any time since companies buy and sell stocks on a regular basis. The bottom line is that Vanguard and BlackRock individually and combined own enough shares at any given time that we can say they easily control both Big Pharma and centralized legacy media and then some.
So, what you're saying then is these 2 companies that are actually one company that own all the media also own most of, if not all,
a major stake
in Big Pharma.
Yeah.
So,
correct.
Wouldn't it make sense then, as a businessman, and you play the stock market yourself, so wouldn't it make sense to then, if you had a business, to use your, let's say your business was vaccines, to then use your platform, which you own the media, to spread urgency to receive such vaccines to drive your profit up?
Yep.
All the way around.
Makes perfect sense.
Hopefully no one ever does that.
And when you even look at the companies that are owned under these companies, it's ridiculous. It really just shows you. But people have seen these narratives, like when we saw the Mockingbird Live, when like 50 reporters all said the same thing during the pandemic and people caught it and showed 50 different people saying the same script. I was like, okay.
You guys listen to this, just so you know, he did a lot of work, so I do want to read this. FX, National Geographic, these are just some of them, by the way. Fox, 20th Century Fox, Fox News, obviously, 21st Century Fox, Hulu, Sony, let's see, there's some Screen Gems, BET, Spike, MTV Films, Comedy Central, MTV, VH1, Paramount, ESPN, Disney, Comcast, Time Warner, CNN, TNT, TBS, Cartoon Network, Time Life, HBO, let's see, NBC, Esquire, Sci-Fi, Universal, Bravo, Telemundo, E! Entertainment, ABC, ESPN, Marvel, Walt Disney, A&E, and Pixar.
Shit's under lock and key, people.
Kush and Chemtrails, the world's most dangerous podcast.